Welcome everyone's Matt along with Goo today. Today we're going to talk about Bishop Ladja, one of the more interesting PvP characters that we have seen. Stay tuned. Alright, let's get started. Kidnap is the first skill, which is fitting for Ladja. This pulls one enemy up to 3 squares and has a very high chance to paralyze at 60%. So basically, if the enemy's weak to paralyze, this will be pretty much a guarantee. Um, really? It pulls an enemy and can paralyze. That is really a great skill. It's a range of 4. There's not really much to say other than this is PvP heaven, and a very powerful skill from Ladja. Not damage wise, but just pulling a unit away and then being able to wham with your team is just a huge skill and something to be very careful when you fight Bishop, who's honestly you're going to see in a lot of high end teams. And that's more because of his weight than his pure power. Second skill is Psycho Scythe. Deals heavy physical damage, high chance of greatly reducing HP recovery, and can draw up to 1 space. The damage version, I like Kidnap better unless if I could pull a few enemies I don't mind pulling away. Personally, in my mind, Kidnap is just a fantastic little skill to kind of take away an enemy for a while. And that to me is just huge. Last one's Killer Kafrizz. Inflicts heavy frizz spell damage and it ignores some damage reduction. So he can be used to one-shot units that are weak to frizz. His awakening skill, the first one is what makes him tick. Increases speed and evasion rate for 3 turns. This is dhoulmagus, everyone. Just a little bit stronger and with Kidnap. So, not much else to say. And this is why a lot of people on PvP are so interested. You use this to draw the other enemies as well. You kidnap the one, suck it in 3 spaces, and then draw the other units towards this to dodge so that you can get a cheap attack, basically, on any of the units. The second is Whoosh, fourth is Zap. The third one, if HP is greater than 50%, reduce damage by 30%. This is also huge. Ladja has a huge weakness, which is doesn't have much HP or defense. It is totally based on evasion, and this definitely helps. And the last one, for 2 turns, has a barrier that reflects spells. So basically, if you fight a fully awakened Ladja, you have to fight it with breath. Breath teams are going to be very important. So, let's continue. Leadership effect increases frizz power by 15%. Honestly, that's not bad. Especially for him if you're going to do damage. Even though I think the first turn for me is going to be much more on the Kidnap. Then we'll start Killer Kafrizzing, which is a pretty large range as well. His HP and defense are actually higher than Madchen's, which is one reason why I had such a disappointment on Madchen. But the weight is 50, and movement's pretty good as well, and the Kidnap range is just exceptional. The Wisdom's at 498, which is good enough. Not going to be known for its damage, but that's not why you want Ladja. The agility at 433 is low, but you're going to have increased agility with your first awakening, so it'll be counteracted a little bit, and the attack is pathetic at 243, but that's just a-okay. The teachable skills, just give them a debuff. And honestly, Paralyze is the one debuff you don't want to give it. But any type of debuff is fine. Depends on how you're building your team. and all that jazz. The one thing is on defense, it's will probably use Psycho Scythe and Killer Cthulhu more than Kidnap. Um, so kind of having debuffs is a good way to go. Maybe having a confuse is another good teachable skill. But honestly, just look at your team and give it another debuff that your team normally don't have. Its preferred weapon is going to be the Evil Scythe. It's intelligence and or wisdom and agility based. Gives undead spell power plus 5%. Um, and obviously, agility is probably the one thing that you're going to look for most to pump up. Killer Cthulhu and Psycho Scythe as well. But as I say, honestly, I'd rather just see higher agility, kidnap, have the other units destroy, draw in physical attacks as much as you can, and then you'll probably go ahead with the Psycho Scythe or Killer Kafriz, depending on how the groups go. But kidnap to me is the most important one. And if you do it correctly, you might even be able to kidnap a second victim um, before you use any of the other skills. So agility may be the best play overall. So pros cons pull. This is dhoulmagus plus, at least in my mind, um, just because of the kidnap ability. I like that pull better, but I'm gonna say to me it's a plus because of that. But I'm not gonna spend super amount of resources on Ladja because of the fact that I just don't have many. Ability to paralyze naturally is a very scary to an evade unit, especially when that paralyzed ability is such a useful skill on top of it. When HP falls below 70%, recovers 50% HP maximum once. The big issue is that if you do use the Scythe instead of a pure HP bubble, Ladja can be one-shotted unless if you really got it 5 awakened. And giving that magic barrier is huge. That is definitely something to go by. But in all honesty, it's one of those kind of depends on how you're using it and the other enemies that are there. But it's just a very good dodge tank for the first 3 turns. That first awakening, though, is absolutely necessary. Otherwise, he is a sitting duck and a very PvP based unit. He can, with his limited healing, be used on some other PvEs as well. So I'm not going to say only PvP. He stinks at everything else. Um, Dual Magnus is used to draw out units and kind of just take on the damage initially. And that's kind of how Ladja is used, but with that anti healing ability or reduction of healing is a better wording. He can be very powerful. And while I pull, yes, but I do have limited resources, good PvP units. I do want him to be EX1 so I can use him in Guild Wars as a different type of unit. And honestly, at this point, because he is undead, I really only need to get one of him to get him to EX1 because I have a whole bunch of undead shards that I will be able to use. And so that is kind of the bonus with Ladja. That's my goal, is to get that one. The summonable unit is the Mandrake Marshal. It's a buffing unit. You really want to give it a debuff. Its leadership effect, increased strike and physical power by 10%. It's level 120 stats. It's okay. The attack is pretty good at 501. It has a whoosh physical attack, which, it can increase the attack power and defense power of an ally. And it's a buffing A unit, so it has uses, but it is not the most sexy unit either. And that's okay. The agility is 422, which means it's okay for speed. Its HP is on the higher side. Its defense is a little bit on the lower side. And the weird thing is its attack, and I'd rather give it a debuff than another attack with the 501. So, the first awakening gives you increase in movement, and the fifth one gives you automatic HP recovery. Not a great deal to say about Mandrake Marshall. I'm not saying he's a miss, but I'm also not saying he's a must-have either. Um, so that's what I've got. So this is the end of the DQ5, if I remember correctly. Um, and all in all, honestly, depending on how you play, Ladja is either a must-have, don't need to, or kind of in the middle. If you are a minnow and you're like, my dhoulmagus is 5 heart, you're probably okay, or it's probably okay just to go for one and then to use your shards to get the awaken +1. For the undead, if you're a heavy PvP player, Ladja is going to be very much in your wheelhouse. If you are a free to play and don't care about PvP, and you have a dhoulmagus at First Awakening, then you can skip him. As I say, there's a lot of people chomping at the bit. He has a very, very good and what I'm even going to kind of call scary ability, kidnap. And if you're fighting against it, make sure that you have units that are pretty much immune to paralyze, that can do breath attacks. Because if you can't, in all fairness, you are in some deep, deep trouble. Um, really, I know it's going to be a little bit annoying, but you are definitely going to see him an awful lot in PvP. I know that a lot of ranking has dhoulmagus up higher. His skills have more of an ability to force units away, but kidnap here to me is just the preferred skill overall to draw through. What I will say is that his major weakness is bang, which is scary. The other one is crackle. And he is, when you really think about it, he's weak to breath units. And with those breath units, there's a decent amount of those, and that's part of the reason why he's lowered so much. But all in all, Zenlot is going to be your main counter against this, and also non-reflectable bang spells as well. Those would be your two big counters, and Ladja can see those, unfortunately, fairly often. So he's ranked low, but he has that really useful skill. And even if you just use it to drag the Zenlon and you have the right speed there, he's I he has abilities to counter the counters when you're in control of Ladja, and because of that, I do highly rate him in PvP. So I hope you guys enjoy. Be safe. And more importantly,